One of the things that a lot of parents ask about is why are we teaching addition and subtraction in ways that you guys never learned? And as we think about the best way for kids to learn, sometimes using a standard algorithm like 316 plus 498 stacked on top of each other and adding and bringing over the one and doing all of those things that you have become so accustomed to don't make sense to an 8 or 9-year-old. So we look at alternative strategies, ways that have a little bit more number sense with them. I'm going to show you 3 of those strategies today. They work with both addition and subtraction. Kids can typically get this standard algorithm with addition pretty easily, but with subtraction it becomes very confusing when they have to go and ungroup from a neighboring number. The first strategy that I want to show you is when we just break apart our numbers into easier to manage groups. So if we were talking about 317 plus 598, we might split that apart into 300 plus 500, 10 plus 90, and 7 plus 8. If I do that, I get 800, 100, and 15. Adding 800, 100, and 15 together is much easier to be able to solve the answer of 915. It's a little bit easier for kids when they break it apart and do it this way. This works much easier for addition than it does for subtraction. When we subtract, oftentimes it's hard for kids to see that they have to go and take from the hundreds place if they're subtracting more than the number of tens that they have. That's where we get into our number line. This is probably the most confusing strategy that we use for parents, so I'm going to just spend a little bit more time on that. This would work for both addition and subtraction, but I'll show it for subtraction because it's the more complicated way. If you understand it for subtraction, you'll get it for addition very easily. If I have 426 minus 178, instead of working on going and ungrouping and doing all of those things, we aren't going to do that. We're going to create our own number line that works in any way we want. We don't have to have jumps that are the same. We don't have to have number spaces that are the same. I'm just going to start with 426. Then I'm going to jump back 178. I'm going to do this by jumping back 100. That gets me to 326. Then I'm going to jump back 7 tens, and I'm going to do it by going 2 tens to start with, 20. That gets me to 306. One more 10 gets me to 296 on the bottom. And then I've done 2 tens and 1 10, and I need to get to 7, so I have 4 more tens. So then I jump back 40 to get to 256. Now you'll have to understand that my iPad screen here isn't big enough for what we would normally have kids do, where we would increase the numbers a lot. At this point, I'm at 256, and I need to jump back 8. So I would jump back 6 to get to 250, and then 2 more to get to 248. That is the way that we use our number line to help us be able to break down our whole idea of 178 into a much more manageable way. The hardest part is crossing over that 100 when we get to the number 306 and 296, but that's a much easier idea than being able to ungroup 10 and bring it over and add 10 ones. It just makes a little bit more sense this way. The final way that we teach our addition and subtraction strategies is just by doing a little planning and thinking about, can I make this an easier to handle number? So if I had 198 plus 296, instead of adding those all up, we know with addition that as long as we don't change the total, we aren't going to get the wrong number. So what we'll do is we'll just take 2 from here and turn it into 200 plus 294. All of a sudden, it becomes a much more easy to handle number. So when we add, we use a strategy called give and take, where we give to one number after we take from another. When we subtract, if we are having numbers like 325 minus 186, I can't really do give and take when I subtract, but I can do take and take, because as long as I don't change the final amount that I'm getting to, it's not going to change how I'm going to solve my strategy. So if I take away the same amount from each spot, it makes it so that I don't change the amount that I'm changing the difference of. So if I take away 25 from here, I have 300, and then I have 161, and then I just take away one more, 299, 160, I can subtract this much easier, and I still get the same answer. So if we think about changing the numbers using give and take for addition and take for subtraction, it lets us not change the answer, but work with more manageable numbers.